All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is Al Brodell. I'll call this special meeting to order, and I'll ask Nicole to do the roll call to determine if we have a quorum. Nicole?
Yes, sir. Chair Brodell,
Present.
Kevin Anderson,
Here.
Grayson Bigger,
Present.
Dr. Jim Carr,
Here.
Dr. Jerry Cash, Kelly Erstein, Chad Hooten, Andy McNeil, Dr. Kyle Miller,
Present.
okay, and Greg Rebels. I see Greg on, he's muted. And with Greg, we have 6 out of the 10
I'm
board
here.
members. Okay, there he is. We have 6 of the 10 members present. We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome.
We have one action item on our agenda today, the economic feasibility of bond issue for Southeast Arkansas College. I'd ask Mr. Nick Fuller to provide the background on this item. Nick?
Good morning. I do appreciate all of you joining the meeting this morning. This is revisiting an item that you all approved during the October board meeting. At that time, this was for a loan issue. Southeast Arkansas College has decided to go in a different direction and go with a bond issue instead. So we had to bring this back to you to be approved again. So the bond issue this time is going to be for $5.6 million with a term up to 21 years at a rate of approximately 6.5%. It's going to be used for educational and general purposes with the funding source from tuition and fee revenue. And this bond issue is going to be used for energy savings projects. And I believe also some security updates on the campus was part of what we talked about at that meeting in October. It is for the same purposes that the loan feasibility was approved. We're just shifting from a loan to a bond. The representatives from the institution are here or should be available to answer any questions. I will point out that in October, the amount was for $5 million rather than 5.6. And the interest rate, I believe, was 4.75 rather than the 6.75. So the interest rate and the amount have gone up slightly with the shift to a bond issue. And then staff does recommend approval of this bond feasibility.
Before we go into any questions, I would ask, since we're back on online for the meeting, that you would please identify yourself before you ask any questions or make comments. Are there any questions for Nick?
Yeah, this is Greg. Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Nick, would you refresh my memory on what the cost savings is going to be for this energy cost reduction measures that they're going to do?
I do not remember off the top of my head. I may need to defer that to the institution to be able to answer.
Okay. They can
Is there
answer
anyone
that.
from the institution that could speak to that? I had a similar question as it relates to the difference in the total amount and the interest rate.
Chair Brodell, good morning. Dr. Stephen Bloomberg, President of Southeast Arkansas College. So I'll address the first question about the energy savings, and then at the chair's pleasure, I'd like to call on Mr. Edmund Hurst from Carty and Company to talk about the increases in the interest rate as well. But if I can answer the first, the total energy savings is $3.5 million over the lifetime of the loan. As we talked about at the November 29th coordinating board meeting, approximately $2.5 million of this project is related to security system upgrades, fire and life safety panel upgrades. So about $2.5 million isn't directly related to energy savings. However, the state energy office allows us to roll those types of projects into a performance energy contract. So without going into too much detail, the $2.5 million will upgrade our entire security system on campus, all new cameras, providing almost 100% coverage of all of our parking lots, all of our square footage under roof. It will also provide electronic control access for all of our doors on campus in the event of an emergency that we need to lock campus down. So when you look at this without the 2.5 million, the energy savings actually are very much in line with the cost of the project. But I want to make sure, once again, the board understood that there was about 2.5 million in necessary upgrades to the security system. Unfortunately, our fire life safety panels are old, antiquated simplex systems that parts are no longer manufactured for. And so this will take us to a new system where we will be using an open source software. We won't have the same problems that we do with the fire life safety panels we have now. So just again, to remind the board about that part. And Chair Rodell, I'll pause for a moment to make sure there's no questions about that. And then I'll ask Mr. Hurst to address the financial amount.
This is Al. I did have a follow-up on that part of the security. Do I remember from our October meeting that in addition to those panels that your security cameras being replaced, that the existing security cameras are past end of life, were almost defunct, and had issues with the functionality of those or the picture that they gave?
Chair Brodell, that is correct. And our current security system is essentially a building by building system. It's not a central system that allows us to see every camera at one time. You're correct that most of the cameras are obsolete. Unfortunately, the images that they do provide are not contemporary, meaning that we can't see faces clearly, whether they're in parking lots or vehicles. And the system's been in place for well over a decade, and unfortunately, it's reached obsolescence prior to my arrival here in 2018. And so we're simply trying to catch up on some very important safety issues on campus. But Chair Brodell, your recollection is correct from the November board meeting that system is, for all intents and purposes, obsolete.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on the security portion?
Dr. Bloomberg, this is Jim Carr. Just a quick question. When you move from a loan to a bond, why the increase in $600K?
Yeah, Mr. Carr, what I'd like to do is have Mr. Edmund Hurst from Carty and Company go over that information with you. We have the answer to that question. So if I may, I'll turn over the floor to Mr. Edmund Hurst from Carty and Company to give you all a little bit more detail about the financial transaction.
Good morning. I'm Edmund Hurst. I work with Carty and Company, the investment banking firm working on the transaction. Mr. Carr, the primary difference there, capitalized interest during construction wasn't included in the previous amount. So that's a significant part of the increase. We also have a provision to allow for the bonds being sold at somewhat of a discount, which would require a little higher rate. So that's the primary difference in the added increased amount. And then certainly over the last several months, as I'm sure everyone's aware, interest rates have moved considerably higher and the banking environment's changed considerably. Certainly a year ago, there's plenty of banks that may have been willing to lock in a 20-year fixed rate, but they're not of that inclination today. So this structure allows the college to access maybe banks for a portion of it, but for the longer term commitment, different types of investors. I'd be happy to answer any questions around that.
My only comment is that a 12% bump seems kind of high.
With regard to the financing amount or the interest rate?
600,000.
I'm sorry, sir?
From 5 million to 5.6.
Yeah, the primary difference there is that there wasn't taken into account interest that would accrue during construction, so capitalized interest. And so this will allow the college not to have to come out of pocket for interest expense while the project's being built, such that once the project's completed and the energy savings are being realized, then at that time that they would make payments. The previous structure had them making payments during construction, which a preferred structure would be that they don't start making those payments until after the project's complete and the savings are being realized.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Just want to know, if you had a loan at 4.75%, what's the thought process in going to bonds and 2% higher rate, or approximately 2%?
This is Edmund Hurst again. I would propose that they hope they would be able to get a rate of 4.75. And certainly if they could have, they would have, but that market's not there right now. And so when they went to go try to lock in that, it wasn't available.
I got you. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. And prime, prime has gone from near 0 to 7% now. So it's amazing, as I'm sure you all well know, how quickly and how aggressively the Feds impacted the interest rate market. And so banks are not inclined to lock in a long-term fixed rate with the Federal Reserve saying that there's going to be continued rate increases.
And Edmund, I may add, this is Phil Watson with Bernhard on the engineering side. To discuss timeline, the rate that was previously in the project and submitted for approval was actually from August. It is now December, so there is some time since lapsed. So this wasn't a quick change in interest rates.
And I will say we've got a little cushion in that rate. I think that if we were locking that in today, I would hope to be less than 6%. But for you all's approval, we wanted to have a little bit of cushion in, what the upper side of that rate would be, given the volatile markets. But if we were locking that in today, I think we'd be a little under 6%.
This is Grayson Bigger. I think when I was reading through this, my biggest concern is the amount of what this would cost on an annual basis versus the ceiling that the institution's allowed, especially considering that there's been an enrollment decline at the institution, and this is coming out of fee and tuition revenue. If tuition or if enrollment does continue to decline, is there an alternate source of funding for this project?
This is Edmund Hurst again with Carty. The projections that I have in front of me now, I'm looking at from Barnhard with their savings projections, show that over the 20-year period, the savings from the project would be $3.6 million greater than what the debt service is. So the thought process is that the actual energy conservation savings will exceed debt service and actually save them money. So, if this works like it's supposed to, they're not supposed to have to dip into their actual student tuition and fees to cover it.
Okay, that's helpful. I just wanted to make sure that those savings were not going to be on the back end, that they would be able to take advantage of those as they're paying this off.
Yeah, and the way this is set up, there's structured cash flow savings each year, beginning with the first year after construction. And so that's why we wanted to include capitalized interest, so that during the construction period, they would not have to dip into their tuition and fee. And so we included that interest amount, so that they won't start paying it until they're realizing savings after that first year.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
I know we've had at least one more board member. I believe Mr. Ernstine's joined since the beginning. I want to pause now and just make sure are there any other questions for either Southeast Arkansas College or Mr. Fuller?
Mr. Chairman, I call for the question.
Do I hear a motion to approve the economic feasibility of bond issue for Southeast Arkansas College?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? I thank you all. This was our only agenda item for today. I appreciate you all making time to get on with us today. Before we go, I'll ask, are there any announcements or any new business to come before the board? Hearing none, I will let everyone know our next meeting will be January 27th at Arkansas State University Mid-South in West Memphis. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I moved.
Second.
Thank you all. We will be adjourned. Have a great day.
Thank you.